you cannot stop the birds from flying over your head, but you can keep them from nesting in your hair.
That's right.
And again with me here today is Dr. Bell. Amber, welcome back.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes, well, I'm reminded of what Lord Palmerston of England said when he was approached by the Scottish clergy. They wanted to appoint a day of fasting and prayer for the cholera. And they came to him, and he replied in effect, "Cleanse and disinfect your streets and houses, promote cleanliness and health among the poor, and see that they are plentifully supplied with good food and raiment, and employ right sanitary measures generally, and you will have no occasion to fast and pray." He went on to say that, "Nor will the Lord hear your prayers while these his preventives remain unheeded." First of all, though, Amber, how is the flu spread?
That's a great question. You definitely want to think about, where am I going to be coming in contact with this virus? How is it going to be passed from person to person? It's primarily spread through airborne droplets that can reach your eyes or your nose or your mouth. For instance, if someone sneezes or coughs, the droplets, the moisture that comes out of the lungs and the nose can be spread through the air and picked up by your body. Also, you can spread it by touching contaminated surfaces and then touching your face, introducing the virus to your face.
Oh, who does that?
Everybody touches their face.
So maybe this is spread by nervousness. I touch something, then I touch my face, and
Yes.
I guess maybe this is a nervous disease.
It's very true. And it's true that the more viruses you're exposed to, the higher your risk for contracting the flu, because you have more and more of that virus in your body.
The Surgeon General of the United States back in 1918 was Rupert Blue. And Rupert Blue gave a number of suggestions. I'll just read them off. He said, avoid needless crowding.
Lots of people.
Lots of people, and in 1918 that was very important, because not only was the war effort underway and there was crowding in the army camps, but people had all moved to the cities in order that they could be involved in industry.
Yes.
And so there was just numerous families in one household. And so, and we've learned that you need to be at least 6 feet apart in order to avoid
The droplet transmission.
the droplets. Yeah, so I guess
good to
we
know.
better move apart here a little bit.
I'll measure tape.
Another thing he said was smother your coughs or your sneezes. Today we say do it in your coat sleeve or something like that. It doesn't work just to put your hand over your face, because then your cough goes out between your hand and your mouth all over the place, and you just spread it to the people beside you instead of the ones in front of you.
And then you shake someone's hand, you know.
Yes, that's
It gets
right.
even worse.
The next thing he said was remember the 3 C's. Clean mouth, clean skin, and clean clothes. Basic cleanliness, and of course that's a good thing to remember anytime. Yeah, cleanliness is next to godliness, isn't it?
That's right.
He said food will win the war. Help by choosing and chewing your food well. Wash your hands before eating, wash your hands after you've touched things. Don't let waste products of digestion accumulate, he said. I haven't heard anybody saying that recently.
No.
But you can imagine if you have your colon full of foods that are putting off toxins from overgrowth of bacteria, your immune system is going to go down.
Definitely compromised.
So he said avoid tight clothing, tight shoes, tight gloves. Seek to make nature your ally, not your prisoner. Then he said when the air is pure, breathe all of it you can. Breathe deeply. And that was his advice, and I think that goes a long ways.
Definitely.
And we get that from the book by John Barry, The Great Influenza. It's a good book to study on the 1918 flu. Good book to study if you're thinking about what the new flu coming through might be like.
Definitely. They always say reviewing history is beneficial. I heard you talk a lot about being careful with coughing, you know, avoiding that droplet transmission. What about other methods to protect, like healthcare providers? Often you see them wearing a mask around.
It is suggested for healthcare workers that they use an N95 respirator. When the patient is sick, we like to put on a surgical mask on them.
Very good.
The surgical mask doesn't really protect them from flu particles, but it cuts down the distance that they can cough or sneeze out the particles.
So you're preventing the spread for the healthcare workers and the other patients in the area.
That's right.
Very good.
What is quarantine anyway?
Well, quarantine is where they either optionally or forcibly place someone apart from other people in society to protect either that person or society. But if say 30% of the population comes down with the flu, that's not going to be very effective.
No, I guess we'd have to put everybody to bed, wouldn't we?
I think so.
Yeah, close down the shop, martial law. Yeah, once a pandemic begins, quarantine isn't likely to be effective. We start talking about social distancing. Social distancing is where you put space between people. You know, everybody carries a 10-foot pole, and
Right.
you don't get within 10 feet of people. Well, actually,
Or they
6
poke
feet.
you.
Yeah, or they poke you. If we can keep 6 feet between people, the number of people contracting a pandemic disease goes down dramatically.
Okay.
So you just kind of wander around the neighborhood saying, "Okay, stay away from me." You know,
Unclean,
just get that
unclean.
Yeah. The big thing we have for prevention in our medical armamentarium is vaccine. What do you know about vaccines?
Once a pandemic starts, it can take anywhere from 4 to 6 months before they develop the vaccine. By the time they find the particular virus, do the testing
Oh.
on it, develop the product, and then finally produce the vaccines.
Oh yeah, and by then, you know, you've had it and it's gone.
Right. In other countries, they've been trying the vaccine. How's it been working over there?
Well, you know, there's a lot of countries trying to vaccinate against the regular flu. Canada's our near neighbor here. They had a 15-year period ending in 2005 where they tried what they call the Universal Influenza Immunization Campaign. They wanted to get everybody immunized. See if they could, you know, cure the common cold or the flu. And in 15 years, they did not significantly reduce the incidence of the influenza.
Well, what about antivirals? Don't they have antivirals out there to protect us against the viruses?
You know, antivirals are the next line of defense once people get the flu, and some of them have been used as a way of preventing the flu. The main one that you've heard on the news a lot is Tamiflu.
Tamiflu.
I remember when Tamiflu first came out, and the drug reps would come around and talk to us physicians about it. It will reduce the duration of the flu from 5 days to 4 days, and it'll make the symptoms not as bad. In China, reports are coming out that they gave the drug at the right time in the first day of symptoms. They gave plenty of it, and the people still died. I guess what we really need to think about is prevention.
Definitely. It sounds like the antivirals and the vaccinations have been an attempt by their medical field, but there might be other options out there for us.
Yeah. You know, when you think about the flu coming around every year, you know everybody doesn't get it. Well, we're talking about a 30% attack rate. Well, what about the other 60-70% that don't get it? Why didn't they get it? How am I going to make sure that I'm among those people that don't get attacked by the flu?
It's a great question. You definitely want to avoid it. 8 natural remedies. Have you heard of them?
natural
The
remedies?
8 natural doctors. Let's talk about those real quick.
Oh, well, tell me about these.
All right. Well, first of all, you've got pure, fresh air.
Oh,
Excellent, getting lots of oxygen, lots of nutrients into your lungs and your body. You've got sunlight, which is
Oh.
wonderful for vitamin D, among many other things.
Uh-huh.
Rest, plenty of rest. They recommend getting at least 7 to 8 hours at night. Nice,
Uh-huh.
keeping your body rejuvenated.
oh,
Proper diet.
Oh.
Very important. You want to feed a healthy body.
Okay.
You are what you eat.
oh.
Plenty of exercise. Everyone's heard about exercise. They promote it all over the place, but it can't be promoted enough. It's
Wow.
very, very good to keep your circulation up, keep all your system running properly.
Uh-huh.
Use of water, keeping yourself hydrated, very
Uh-huh.
important. Temperance,
Oh.
also a very important component, making sure you do everything in moderation.
Uh-huh.
And then trust in divine power. Also,
Oh.
many studies show that people with a strong faith do well. So
Wow.
these are our true remedies.
I want to talk a little bit about how the flu attacks us so that we kind of have an idea how we can avoid getting a flu by stimulating the part of the immune system that's going to be most important. The first line of defense. First of all is when the virus attacks the body, it attacks, say, a lung cell. It goes in the cell and it starts to take over the cell machinery to make more viruses. When it does that, it starts putting off viruses out of that cell to go infect other cells. And so the number of viruses in the lungs rises exponentially, really fast. And so the first thing your body does in order to bring down the number of viruses is it gets the natural killer cells working, and it starts interferon working. These two things are the first line of defense, natural killer cells and interferon. So what we need to do is stimulate the natural killer cells. Make them so there are more of them and so they're more active. We want to avoid the things that will depress the natural killer cells.
That's right.
And then we want to do things that will increase interferon. After your first line of defense, the second line of defense is your lymphocytes, especially the B cells. B cells produce antibodies. The important antibody here is called IgA, immunoglobulin A. Well, this is one that we'll look at also to see how the 8 natural remedies affect that part of the immune system.
Sounds good.
Let's look at pure air first. Should we go outside to be doing this?
Well, if the weather was conducive, but pure air is definitely much better for you. Negative ions found in fresh air can actually activate natural killer cells and reduce the number of disease-causing microbes in the air.
Wow, well that's great. That sounds real good.
In
Wow.
fact, it's been shown in many studies that different fragrances, such as pine, cedar, and fir, actually have medicinal properties that promote healing.
Wow. So maybe I better take a walk outside
Through
in the
woods.
forest.
That's right. Yes, several studies have shown that pine cone extracts have actually been shown to suppress the growth of the influenza virus in the cells.
Oh.
And
well, that's
some
great.
people actually use pine as an essence oil. Citrus has also been shown to inhibit the influenza A virus. Citrus oils are often recommended to reduce viruses in the air.
So I guess I better get some lemons and start squeezing the skins around, huh?
That's one way to do it. Just as fresh air and pine and citrus are good for you, there are certain components that you can find in air that are bad for you.
Studies have shown that high levels of ozone or sulfur dioxide, the component in acid rain, are actually very harmful, and people who live in these areas have more pneumonia and more influenza. There's also studies that show that people who had their offices remodeled, new carpet, new plastic sheeting on the wall, new desks, new chairs, that there was a increased amount of formaldehyde, phenol, organic hydrocarbons in the air, and the people's immune system suffered. The natural killer cell activity was reduced. And so maybe you don't want to remodel your office right before the bird flu season.
That's right. Well, what about mold? You hear a lot about mold.
People who live in houses that have had mold have a higher incidence of respiratory infections and symptoms.
We also talked about sunlight as one of our 8 natural remedies or 8 natural doctors. And sunlight is very important.
That's right. This is a particularly bright point. They did a study on people where they exposed them to sunlight for an hour a day for 12 days, and then they checked their immune system, and it significantly increased their circulating immune cells for up to 2 weeks after the experiment.
Which is very good for
Oh,
fighting off
yeah.
everything, keeping your immune system boosted.
Yeah, cancer, you know.
It also is found to trigger vitamin D production. And they found that children who have a deficiency are actually predisposed to respiratory infections.
Wow.
And they also find that vitamin D prevents excessive inflammation, or the cytokine storms, the inflammation coming into the area. And also it stimulates the natural killer cells lining the respiratory tract. We talked about the natural killer cells and the interferon being the big first
line
wall.
of defense. They've even come to the conclusion that it's not the cold of winter that predisposes people to a seasonal, cold season or flu season, but it's actually the deficiency of vitamin D from being indoors all the
That's
time.
true. Tell us a little bit about the interferon.
Yeah, there's a problem with the flu. The flu attacks the immune system, and it makes it so that the immune system does not produce as much interferon. When the flu is gone, the immune system is still shut down. And then the bacteria can come in and give you bacterial pneumonia. When you go out in the sunlight, it suppresses the virus's ability to knock out interferon. And so the stimulation to the immune system by the sunlight is very important.
Do you have any suggestions about the amount of sunlight or any guidelines for the amount of skin that needs to be exposed or anything like that?
The suggestion is that you should be out in the sun for 20 minutes 3 days out of the week with at least 25% of your skin exposed to the sun. You know, you can decide which 25% you want, but yeah,
Be discreet.
the other thing is that sun has ultraviolet light in it, and ultraviolet light kills microbes. In this case, it'll kill the influenza virus. It's the UV light that does that. Sometimes in the hospital, we'll put up UV lights just to kill more bugs.
Well, we talked about pure air and sunlight. Our next thing is temperance. Temperance means moderation or avoiding things that aren't good for you.
The whole idea here is to avoid those things which are bad, those things that are good to use in moderation, because we can overdo it on good stuff too.
That's right.
And I think, you know, when you think about the bird flu and you think about your lungs, the first thing you think about is people who are using their lungs for something other than just air, like perhaps tobacco smoke.
Yes.
The studies have shown that smokers are 1.5 times more likely to catch the flu. And what's more, on the yearly flus, if a smoker gets the flu, they'll be 70% more likely to take off work as a result of the flu. So I wouldn't be smoking.
Well, smoking tends to be associated with alcohol often. I'm sure alcohol's bad for your immune system.
Yes, and the alcohol poisons the little killer cells, and people who drink a lot of alcohol definitely have suppressed immune systems. What's also interesting is together the two are multiplicative in their effect. The two together really knock out the immune system more than either
Just
one by
individually.
themselves would.
Yeah. What else can we be excessive in that can bother our immune systems?
You know, we all have to eat. People who eat less have more active natural killer cells.
Interesting.
And this is especially important as people get older, because as you get older, your immune system tends to decline. But people who are on caloric restriction can attenuate that decline over a long period of time.
Well, another natural remedy that we've talked about is proper rest. They found that people who sleep well have significantly better immune systems than people who have insomnia.
Must be your immune system likes to sleep too.
Yeah, good rest for the whole body. They found actually in a study with mice that sleep is beneficial.
They took some mice and they vaccinated them. And then they put them in 2 groups. One group they sleep deprived, and the other group they let them sleep.
Okay.
And then they gave them both influenza viruses. Well, the group that were sleep deprived caught the flu as though they'd never been immunized compared to the other group. So you could do everything, you know, right as far as getting your usual immunizations and so forth, but if you don't get your sleep, it really does you no good.
I heard meditation is really good as well as a form of building your immune system.
Yes, meditation does improve the immune system according to a study in 2003.
Now, you told me there was a study that was done down in Georgia about taking a day out of the week to rest.
People have thought maybe that helps reduce stress.
Definitely. Taking a day off, you don't have to worry about anything.
That's right. You know, Seventh-day Adventists have been studied a lot because they live longer, they have fewer diseases. This was a study out of Georgia where they were checking their immune systems. They found that Seventh-day Adventists had higher levels of immune-stimulating antioxidants. Those who are vegetarian even had better antioxidant levels. Well, Amber, here we sit today. We're thinking about exercise, and I'm just thinking you must know something about exercise as a physical therapist.
Well, many of our patients benefit significantly from getting on a regular exercise program, that's for sure.
I bet you're a real drill sergeant.
That's right. Do your reps and do them now.
Does it really make a difference, though, in the immune system?
Well, studies have shown so, actually. They took a bunch of people and studied those who did moderate exercise and found that they significantly reduced their risk for upper respiratory tract infections.
Wow.
Which is great for the flu because that's basically what's attacked.
I guess I better go run a marathon then.
If you overexert yourself, that can actually hurt your immune system.
Oh.
In fact, as you age, they tend to find that your immune system declines. But natural killer cells respond positively to introducing moderate exercise.
Oh.
And it actually increases the number and the function of the killer cells.
Shall I go get on my treadmill in my closet and, do a mile or two?
Well, you could do that, but fresh air is even better if you could go outside. But
we say that perfect health depends on
perfect circulation.
Perfect circulation. Well, if you go outdoors and you put on a big warm vest, Some people have the idea that the heart and lungs, that's the furnace room. You keep it warm and it'll send warm blood out. But the rest of you is practically naked. Your limbs are out. This makes it so the blood moves up from the legs up to your abdomen and up to your chest and your brain. You congest the blood in your head, abdomen, pelvis. If your blood is all congested in your chest and in your head, then you won't be able to have a good immune system in that area. It's kind of like trying to get a emergency vehicle on and off the freeway when you're in rush hour traffic. If there's too many cars on the road, nothing's going to happen. And so one of the important principles is making sure your whole body is covered evenly.
Other things to take into consideration is your circulation and how that's affected with your clothing.
Studies show that if you have too tight a belt or elastic around your waist, it slows your transit time of your bowels. It slows your bowels. And if you have too tight a constriction around your chest and you can't breathe as well, you'll have both air movement problems and blood movement problems. Clothing that fits comfortably but not tight helps the circulation to be more even through your body. Well, you know, they say an apple a day
Keeps you away?
it keeps the doctor away. Proper diet's very important.
That's true. Very good. Well, let's get started.
Well, first of all, they did some studies on people who were eating a lot of fat.
Now, define a high-fat diet for me.
Well, a high-fat diet would be a diet that has more than 17% of the calories coming from fat.
Okay.
And so that's a pretty big restriction there. The average American diet's about 40% fat.
Wow.
And so if people are eating a normal amount of fat, according to the American diet, it cut their immune systems in half, knocked out the natural killer cells. If they're on a high-fat diet, which, you know, people eat a lot of junk
Almost
food
everyone,
are,
yeah.
they had a 79% reduction in natural killer cell activity.
Wow.
But if they were on a low-fat diet, i.e. 10 to 15% of their calories coming from fat, then their natural killer cell activity was increased compared to high-fat diets.
Wow.
Well,
So you can just completely knock out your immune system right there. It doesn't matter if you eat all the vegetables you want. If you go follow it up with a bag of potato chips and soda, you just dropped your immune system way back down again.
That's right. And the type of fat's important too. A high cholesterol diet was studied in one case. And when they studied the high cholesterol diet, they found out that it knocked out the natural killer cell activity. It reduced it down to 1/4 the usual activity.
Now, do you find cholesterol in fruits and vegetables?
You know, fruits and vegetables don't have any cholesterol. It takes a liver to make cholesterol, and a fruit, you know, a banana doesn't have a liver.
So any type of animal product then is our main source of cholesterol.
That's right. If it has a face, well...
If it had eyes, don't eat it.
If it has a mother. It also reduces the interferon production.
Well, you mentioned cholesterol coming from something that had a liver. Milk comes from cows.
Oh, yeah.
That must affect our interferon levels and killer cell activity.
They did a study in rats and mice. They found out drinking milk greatly reduced the natural killer cell activity.
Sounds that way. You've talked about fat and cholesterol as part of your diet and milk and all those things, but I can still have sugar on my oatmeal, right?
Well, if you beg me enough. Actually, it doesn't matter what I say. Your immune system will tell you.
That's right.
They studied a bunch of mice and they fed them a high table sugar diet, and it greatly reduced their immune systems. It was not good.
Taking everything away.
Taking everything away. Yeah.
This is very good to know. I want to know how to strengthen my immune system. So you're saying go easy on the sugar. Well, why? What does it do to my body?
Well, you know, sugar has a way of disarming your white cells. They would just as soon eat sugar as eating bacteria. They did a study where they took a bunch of people and they took their white cells and they found out that each white cell during a day, during a 12-hour period, could eat 14 bacteria. Well, that's good. That's great. Eat the bacteria. These are bad bacteria that could cause disease. Then they gave the person a 12 teaspoon dose of sugar.
Okay.
Now, what common food would have 12 teaspoons of sugar?
Well, I think soda pop has 11 to 12 teaspoons in it.
That's right, one soda pop. And when they gave them one soda pop, those white cells could only gobble up 5 or 6 bacteria.
Less than half.
Less than half. Then they had 2 soda pops, and it reduced the number of bacteria that a white cell could eat to 1 in a day.
So pretty much disarmed the white cells.
Oh yes, and the average American gets about 32 teaspoons of sugar a day.
Well, all right, I'm getting rid of my sugar. Out with the cholesterol and fat. Bring on some beef.
Oh boy! Studies of mice where they fed them a 25% protein diet showed that it reduced their natural killer cell activity. The best diet for the mice was to have about a 5% protein diet.
Beef had a liver.
Yeah,
so we
beef
want
had
to get
a
our
liver.
protein from somewhere else.
That's right. That's exactly right. And where would we get our protein, Amber? I'm trying to think of a good source.
Well, I hear soy is the new trendy food out there.
From the studies, I understand that soy has shown benefit for people who have the flu.
It doesn't just benefit the flu, but it also helps with cancer because
Oh.
there's such strong antioxidant properties and it's a very potent immune stimulator.
Wow. Well, we all better go get our soybeans, huh?
That's right.
When I was in high school, I had a friend that decided to go on what he called a raw food diet. While we're busy eating other things, he's eating this big bowl of salad every day. You know, you can only imagine how much we teased the guy. And then a few years ago, I got a hold of him, talked to him on the phone. I says, "Hey, how you doing?" He says, "Great." I said, "Are you still on your raw food diet?" He says, "I sure am." I says, "How's that going?" He says, "Great. You know, in 25 years, I have not had the flu, a cold, or any illness." He says, "Before I went on that diet, I was sick all the time. Snot in the wintertime, colds, flu, and so forth."
Lovely.
Yeah, lovely. But the studies have shown that a fresh food diet, fresh fruit and fresh vegetables, greatly stimulate the immune system and definitely reduce the incidence of illnesses.
So not only was he eating none of the things we talked about to avoid, but he was just really eating a lot of raw fruits and vegetables. So
Yes.
that's fantastic. Just kicking that immune system going.
Oh, yes. Greatly increasing the immune system.
Well, it sounds like he was on a plant-based diet.
Yes, definitely.
So what can we get from plants that strengthens our immune system?
You know, plants are high in all kinds of vitamins. They did a study comparing omnivores and vegans. That's a total vegetarian. In that study, they found out that vegetarians had 3 times the amount of vitamin C, 3 times the amount of vitamin E, almost 3 times the amount of vitamin A. They had more copper. They were a little bit low on zinc and selenium, though, and we're going to talk about those because those are things that a vegetarian will want to boost. But they were not too high on cholesterol either, so that was a good thing.
That's right.
They turned around and tested their blood to see if the intake of these increased amount of nutrients made a difference in their blood, and sure enough, they had more vitamin A, C, and E in their blood, and their natural killer cell was twice that of omnivores.
Fantastic. It goes back to our study about the Adventists in Georgia who seem to be
Yes.
doing better than the people around them, especially when they're vegetarian.
You bet.
Apples. They are some
Apples.
of my personal favorites. Can I keep eating apples?
Yeah, apples are great. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, but there's a little bit of truth to that. Modern medical science has shown that apples actually improve lung function.
Interesting.
And since it's your lungs that are going to be attacked by the virus, you want to have good lungs. What's more, apples contain phytochemicals. Those are basically vitamins that haven't gotten a letter name because they came along long after the letter people were putting out letters.
That's right.
But phytochemicals actually in apples will inhibit influenza viruses.
Fantastic. I'll keep eating apples then.
Yeah, keep eating your apples.
Now, another way I hear to keep people away is garlic.
Keep people away is garlic.
Apple
That's
a day
exactly
keeps the
right.
doctor away, garlic keeps everyone else away.
And it keeps the influenza virus away as
Well,
well.
that's good.
Yeah, you bet. In fact, there was a study they did where they actually gave people a garlic supplement pill. Those that had the garlic supplement pill had 60% fewer influenza infections during the winter than those who didn't take it.
Interesting.
And there's a relative to garlic, and that's the onion. What do you know about onions?
Yes, there's a particular product in onions called quercetin, and it actually protects against oxidative stress and the lung damage, the epithelial damage to the wall caused by the flu, the influenza. So just like apples and green leafy vegetables and beans, the onion is very good for your immune system and protecting your lung tissue.
And that's what the problem is in flu, is it kills your lungs. And so eating onions
Yeah,
and garlic could be a good way of keeping your lungs in good shape.
that's very true. Now, a personal favorite, I hear many people say that if you have wine, it helps you out. But what is it about the wine? It's in the grapes, right? That helps with
Yes.
properties for your immune system?
As we talked about earlier, alcohol depresses the immune system. But the properties in grapes that are good can be gotten from the grape. You don't have to, rot the grape in order to get it. And in fact, there's a phytochemical in grapes, resveratrol, that strongly inhibits the replication of influenza viruses inside the cells.
Well, I know something that looks like grapes. Elderberry.
Elderberry extract has actually been shown to have some antiviral properties against influenza. It can help with actually affecting the viral load. Do you ever eat white bread?
No,
Why not?
actually. Well, I was told it didn't have much nutrient value.
But doesn't it taste better than brown bread?
Yes, with lots of peanut butter and jelly on it. It's very good.
If somebody's only getting 50% of the USRDA of vitamins, their natural killer cell activity was greatly depressed. But we want to make sure we get enough of the good vitamins.
Well, how about folate?
If you're deficient in folic acid, they've shown that will reduce your immune system, both the lymphocyte counts and natural killer cell activity, by 60%.
Well, great. I'll go buy a pill.
Oh boy. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Pills are not the answer. They did a
Really?
study. They took a bunch of people. They found out they were deficient in folate. One group, they split them in half. One group, they fed a good diet, raised their natural killer cell activity back up, increased their body stores of folate. The other group, they gave a supplement to. The people who got the food had a better response in their immune system than those that got the pill. Then they got the bright idea. Well, we'll give the pill to the people who are getting good food too. We'll
good.
really boost
Double it.
Double the effect. At the end of the study, the people who were eating the good food and took the pill, their immune system was worse than if they had not eaten the diet or taken the pill.
So it actually counteracted the effect of the good diet then.
That's exactly right.
Well, tell me what kind of food I should eat to get my folate.
What food has good folate? The USRDA is about 400 micrograms. And if you look at 100 grams of food, arrowroot has a lot. It has 338.
Wow.
Wheat germ has a lot. Peanuts, sunflower seeds, spinach, lentils, pinto beans, parsley. A lot of oats have some. One thing I'll let you know, though, there's some foods that have none. And when a food has none, it tends to deplete the system of what folic acid you do have.
So it actually drags out what's in there with it?
Yeah, it makes the body use up its stores instead of providing some. Corn oil. I mean, oil doesn't have folic acid. Potato chips, soda pop. There's a lot of foods that are just basically nutrient depleted.
How about vitamin A? Let's start at the beginning.
Yes, a deficiency of vitamin A reduces natural killer cell number and function. And so you want to make sure you have enough vitamin A. Vitamin A deficiency also results in a loss of IgA producing cells, those B cells that we said were the second line of defense when you're attacked by an influenza virus.
Now, you said taking the pill to get folic acid is not a good idea. Can I take a vitamin A supplement in a pill form?
That's a good question, because in America we commercialize everything. If we find out that, fiber's good, well, we have fiber that you can buy
Drink
and
with
eat.
right?
Yeah, you can eat your white bread and send a fiber chaser after it.
That's right.
But you see, the foods that we eat normally have good nutrition, and taking a pill has not proven helpful. Vitamin A. In Finland, they did a study on lung cancer. They found out after they studied the population that the people who had a higher serum level of vitamin A and vitamin E for that matter, had lower lung cancer rates. Voila, let's feed everybody pills. So everybody got a pill. Vitamin A and vitamin E. Lo and behold, the lung cancer rates went up, not down.
Interesting.
They says, what's the matter here? Same thing in America. Prostate cancer did a similar study. Found out that people who had higher serum levels, body levels of vitamin A and vitamin E had lower cancer rates of prostate cancer. Okay, let's feed them all the pills. Yes, pull out the pills. Gave them the pills, vitamin A pills, vitamin E pills. Whoa, what happened? Up went the cancer rates again. You see, let's just take vitamin A for a minute.
Yep.
If you eat a carrot has 273 different active forms of vitamin A. If you get the pill, you get one, and it may not be active. If you get the pill, then you're deficient in 272. Well, how do you know they picked the right one to put in the pill? Well, the best way is to eat the carrot. And same thing with vitamin E. We'll talk about vitamin E in a minute, but sources of vitamin A: paprika, cayenne pepper, sweet potatoes, carrots, kale, spinach, squash, cantaloupe, even broccoli. Now, you know, they fortify some foods with vitamin A. And you know, eggs, chickens, beef, there is no vitamin A. You're not going to, you know, fight off the flu with a big steak. It just won't work.
Nope.
So that's not necessarily the way to go.
Well, you had mentioned vitamin A and vitamin E as the two vitamin sources that they tested for people with like prostate cancer or lung cancer.
Well, vitamin E is very important for the influenza. The number of viruses in your lungs is reduced if you have a good body store of vitamin E.
Interesting.
And it also prevents you from getting too much lung inflammation. It reduces that cytokine storm effect. So having enough vitamin E in your body is important. So you ought to start now. Don't wait till the flu shows up and then decide you're going to eat wheat germ and, you know, almonds and so forth.
Right.
You need to have a good diet now so your body's stores of this food are up. The other thing that happens in the flu is the flu shuts down your brain. It does it a number of ways. It sends your brain into alpha waves. That also shuts down your immune system.
Sleep.
But it also makes it so you don't feel like eating. Vitamin E will help keep your appetite up.
Okay, excellent. Well, tell me what I can use to get my source of vitamin E.
Yes, we want to get our vitamin E from good food. First of all, sunflower seeds are good, and I'll mention sunflower seeds a number of times here because they do keep coming up as being a nutrient-rich food. Almonds, flaxseed oil has a lot, wheat germ, olive oil, pine nuts, a lot of nuts will have this kind of thing. Oily foods that are natural. Cloves, ground cloves have some, mixed nuts and seaweed, spirulina. Dandelion greens even have, so you might have a source of vitamin E right in your front yard.
That's right. Forget weeders, go out there and pick it.
That's right. And by the way, beer, tea, coffee, sugar do not have vitamin E.
No vitamin sources.
Beef has very little, if any.
Well, I love my chewable vitamin C's.
Yeah.
Can you tell me anything about that? Should I avoid those also?
I bet you suck on those like candy,
Yes,
huh?
I do.
Well, Linus Pauling would be proud of you. It is a good vitamin, and it's an antioxidant. It helps reduce the inflammation in the lungs. It helps preserve the lungs from so much damage. And if you take it before or during a flu or cold, it helps reduce the symptoms. So vitamin C is something you wouldn't want to be low on.
Okay.
I don't know that you want to take mega doses, and again, I would be taking that from the natural source.
You seem to really be promoting fruits and vegetables here, Doctor.
I sure am. Who was it that said, let food be your medicine and medicine your food?
Was that Hippocrates?
I think that was Hippocrates. Well, so vitamin C. What kind of foods have good vitamin C, Dr. Bell?
Well, I saw that gentleman eating strawberries on the slide.
Yes.
So definitely strawberries is a good source. Also bell peppers,
Bell peppers.
chives, red cabbage.
Red
We
cabbage.
see broccoli all through here. Broccoli seems to be a good source of many things. Pineapple,
Uh-huh.
citrus, oranges and lemons,
Uh-huh.
cooked kale,
Oh,
cauliflower, peas, potatoes. But a couple of things don't have vitamin C.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, several others like tea and coffee,
Oh.
salmon.
You mean there's none in fish?
Nope, no vitamin C in fish.
Well, you know I mentioned that vegetarians are possibly low on selenium. But if you get a good selenium build up in your body, it will increase natural killer cell activity by 70%.
Fantastic.
What's more, it helps protect the lungs. It reduces the cytokine storm. It makes it so the lung tissues don't get as damaged, and they recover faster after the flu's been through.
Fantastic. So, you saying it's difficult to find. Where do we get it?
The best source is Brazil nuts.
Brazil nuts.
I mean, in fact, one Brazil nut is almost like a vitamin pill. It's just incredible. In 100 grams of Brazil nuts, there's 1,900 micrograms of selenium.
And the USDA only recommends 70, so
Yeah.
you're really getting plenty there.
So have a Brazil nut a day along with your apple,
Right.
huh? Keep the doctor away. Mixed nuts, probably because there's Brazil nuts there.
Mm-hmm.
Sesame seeds, sunflower seeds. Remember we mentioned sunflower seeds before?
Very good.
Wheat germ, amaranth flakes, oat bran, barley, tofu, white flour, even has a little. Interestingly enough, brown sugar does not have much. So you want to make sure you're not trying to get your source from brown sugar.
Right.
Butter, none. And I guess we're kind of picking on foods that are
That's
nutrient
right.
poor. But there's a number of elements that are important for your immune system.
Well, you mentioned again selenium and zinc being the two things that vegetarians are usually low on. So I need my
Yeah.
Brazil nuts. What do I need for zinc, and why does that
Oh.
help my immune system?
Zinc is necessary for natural killer cell activity. And it stimulates the immune system. Your immune system needs more than the amount that it takes to help you grow. The requirements are higher. So the USARDA of zinc is 15 milligrams a day. And good sources are wheat germ, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, wheat bran, pine nuts, wild rice, cashew nuts, caraway seeds. If you're looking again at hard candy, it has none. Beef tallow, none. Shortening, there's a few foods that just
Nothing with
aren't
zinc,
going
huh?
to sustain life during a flu pandemic.
All right.
Well, Amber, we've talked about a lot of foods. I'm just thinking, I wish I had a list of just, a few things I could be
Definitely.
eating. What would you suggest I eat in the way of vegetables?
Well, garlic,
Yeah?
onions,
Okay.
carrots, kale, spinach, and broccoli.
Okay.
All excellent sources of many of the vitamins that we've talked about.
And, we mentioned a few fruits. What would you suggest I eat in the way of fruits that would be helpful?
Well, definitely apples and strawberries, grapes and citrus. All excellent sources, again, of the vitamins that we need to keep our immune system especially strong.
Okay. Are there some foods that you're just nuts about?
Yeah, and Brazil nuts.
Brazil nuts?
That's right, and pine nuts.
Oh.
Also seeds. You mentioned many seeds that are very high in vitamins like sunflower seeds, sesame, and pumpkin seeds.
Uh-huh.
And just overall fresh raw foods, soy, wheat germ, turmeric, also very good sources of the vitamins we need to keep our immune system strong.
Turmeric's very helpful because it is not only high in vitamins, but it helps the immune system fight inflammation. Well, we've basically been talking about a diet that comes from the Bible, haven't we?
Described in the Garden of Eden. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food, and you'll eat the plants of the field. That's found in Genesis chapter 1, verses 29
Yes.
and 3:18.
Well, if we just stuck with that diet, maybe we wouldn't get the flu.
It sounds like an excellent proposition.
Yes. Well, Amber, boy, we're going through this list of things, and people often drink with their meals. I'm thinking about fluids and liquids and so forth. You mentioned water, though, as being a very important part of what you call the 8 natural remedies.
That's right. They don't always advocate drinking with your meals, though. They say that drinking a lot during your meal actually can dilute the digestive juices that need to absorb the nutrients that you're eating. So water is definitely a good thing, but sometimes they recommend stopping drinking about a half an hour before your meal and about an hour after your meal to give your body the digestive juices time to go through the material and absorb as much of the nutrients in your intestines as you can.
Well, great.
So, but definitely water is extremely important.
Is it?
60 to 80% of the tissue in your body is made up of water.
Wow.
So if you don't adequately replenish what's in your body, it can really damage your body, especially if you think about how much you sweat during the day, how much you excrete during the day. Your body is always putting out fluids through perspiration. When you breathe, you're putting out fluid and moisture. So it's very important to maintain that because your body will naturally dehydrate if you don't replenish it.
Oh.
So, and complications that go with dehydration are constipation.
Oh, boy.
Yes, urinary and tract infections, respiratory infections,
Oh, there you go.
delirium,
Influenza.
that's right, renal failure, electrolyte imbalances, hyperthemia, and they've even shown longer time for wound healing when you don't have adequate water. So it's very important. Many things, dryness in the skin, fatigue, all those things are much complications with not getting enough water. I read in one study up to 70% of Americans are dehydrated.
We say water, but you don't just drink water. There's
also-
other ways of using water.
To benefit your body? Go ahead, tell us
That's
about
right. One of the things we have lost is the art of hydrotherapy.
The use of water for treatment.
Most persons would receive benefit from a cool or tepid bath every day, morning or evening. Instead of increasing the liability to take cold, a bath properly taken fortifies against cold.
So you can actually improve your immune system with taking a bath?
That's right. If you were going to go out in the cold weather and first you took a bath at, say, 64 degrees Fahrenheit, this actually stimulates your immune system. It augments the white cell response to cold exposure, and it increases natural killer cell activity.
So getting in that chilly bath is actually a good thing.
That's right. There's a lot of benefits to a good hydrotherapy.
Well, what about the flu pandemic that we had in 1918? You had mentioned taking water, not just orally, but other uses of water. Did they use that for the 1918 flu to help?
There were certain centers around the United States that were using water treatments in 1918. And a few statistics on these. For those that went to the Army hospital, 17% got pneumonia and 7% died. Of those that did hydrotherapy at home, only 9% got pneumonia and only 4% died. Of those who went to the 10 sanitariums, any one of the 10, there was a 1% rate of pneumonia and only a 0.5% mortality.
It's fantastic.
Yes, very good results from doing these hydrotherapy treatments. Now, this talk we're doing now is on prevention, so we're not going to talk about treatment a whole lot. But I just wanted to mention that because the third talk we do in this series will be on treatment, and we'll talk about what those sanitariums did and what you can do if you are so unlucky or so unprepared as to get the influenza.
Now, if you feel yourself coming down the flu, Dr. Clark, what would you recommend? What do you do when you feel like you might be getting some symptoms of the flu?
First thing I do is I get in the shower and I turn it as hot as I can stand, and then I just let myself warm up. In fact, I keep the hot shower on until I feel my temperature go up. Now you might wonder how I know.
How do you tell if your temperature is rising?
How do you tell if your temperature is rising? Well, it's a feeling you get. Well, the way I figured that out is I put a thermometer in my mouth one time and just felt how I felt to see whether or not I could tell if my temperature was going up. Sure enough, my temperature started going up and I started feeling this kind of uneasy feeling like I'm sick.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got, recorded in my head what it would feel like. You can put a thermometer in your mouth. The idea is raise your temperature a little bit from whatever it is when you get in the shower to a degree or two, just so you know you affected yourself.
So take your normal temperature and raise it 1 degree.
Yeah. Then, after I've gotten my temperature up, I turn it to cold. Usually
The fun part.
The fun part. And my water is very cold.
There you go.
If your water isn't cold, then you may have to come up with a way to get colder. One way would be to have a bucket full of ice water and have your enemy or somebody pour it on you. But anyway, 1 minute of cold following this hot. Then I repeat that 1 or 2 times. I go back and turn it on hot and raise my temperature again. And then once I've gone through the cold after the last hot, 1 minute of cold, then I go to bed for a half hour.
Okay.
And boy, let me tell you, that makes you feel like you have just taken a really, really strong medicine. And usually after doing that once, when I think I'm coming down with a cold or a flu, that'll cure it.
Really?
Yeah, that usually cures it, just like that.
Now, does this do something to your immune system when you go back with the hot and cold?
It actually does. It boosts your immune system quite dramatically. It increases the circulation dramatically too. And remember, perfect health depends on
Perfect circulation.
That's right.
Well, you take your hot and cold treatments,
Yes.
and then what do? Is that all you do for kicking that flu or cold?
Well, no, I'll actually take something by mouth, and that is a dose of charcoal.
Charcoal.
Yeah, now we're not talking the briquettes.
Cubes from my
from your broiler.
barbecue out back.
No, you wouldn't want to take those. Those have chemicals added to them, so they'll burn, but you got the idea. That is charcoal. You can go to health food stores. You can go to charcoalremedies.com online. You can get it from different sources. You can go out, burn some wood in your backyard and scrape the black stuff off. That's fine. The best is activated charcoal. And what I'll do is I'll take a tablespoon of charcoal or 2 tablespoons of charcoal and put it in a cup of water in a glass jar, put on the lid, shake it up so it's all emulsed, and then I'll drink it down as quickly as I can. And so this stuff is good. It binds viruses. It takes toxins out of your system, those toxins that the virus is producing that will cause cytokine storm throughout the rest of your body. It helps in all those areas.
So it's like you swallowed a sponge.
Yes, exactly.
It absorbs up the toxins.
That's exactly right.
Fantastic.
It's very good.
So when I start feeling those symptoms of cold or flu, along with all the other remedies, I'm definitely going to use some hydrotherapy, drinking plenty of water to keep hydrated, and use my hot and cold bath, and maybe mix in some charcoal with that water.
That's right. And if you see that everybody else is getting flu around the neighborhood, do a cold bath once a day. And that definitely stimulates the immune system too. You don't even have to do hot.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Well, one of the last things I mentioned when we talked about the 8 natural remedies was trust in divine power.
In God we trust.
In God we trust, just like on our bills that
Yep.
we have in our billfold.
That's why we keep them in our billfold, right?
That's right. The trust. There are many studies that talk about religion having a profound effect on your immune system, actually.
You bet. Religiosity or spirituality has been shown to increase the immune function. People who go to church and get involved have better immune function.
When they compared people who have a spiritual well-being with those who don't, they found they had longer life expectancy.
Wow.
They had more satisfaction in their life. They dealt better with illness. They have fewer and shorter hospital stays.
Oh, yes.
They suffer less anxiety and depression, and they enjoyed better immune function. Stress also affects your immune system.
Stress affects the immune system in a number of ways. Remember we said natural killer cells are important, as are IgA producing cells. If you get stressed, natural killer cell activity decreases and levels of IgA decrease in your tears, in your lungs, in your saliva. And so, again, you'll be a sitting duck for the bird flu.
Man, it sounds like your mental health really affects your physical health.
That's right.
And trust in divine power tends to make mental health stronger.
That's right.
And leads to a stronger immune system.
That's right. The number of respiratory infections increase with increasing amounts of psychological stress.
Very interesting.
And as we know, psychological stress is really how I respond to a situation. It's not necessarily the situation by itself.
That's right. Such as responding with anger, for instance.
Yes. You know, one 5-minute episode of anger can significantly reduce IgA levels for up to 5 hours.
Wow, that's really incredible. 5 hours your immune system is affected by a 5-minute reaction to anything that's going on around you. That's pretty amazing. Well, I like to laugh.
Do you?
Yes. Does that help me at all?
That's right. Laughter's the best medicine,
That's
right?
what I hear. Merry heart doeth good like a medicine.
That's right. And a lack of a sense of humor, when you let daily problems and negative emotions get you down, it actually decreases your IgA levels again.
So telling jokes is actually good for everyone.
Well, it could be. Do you have a joke for us?
No, not off the top of my head.
It's interesting, too, as we're talking about trust in divine power, decreasing stress, and helping to improve your emotional state, that living a life of trust in God leads to life lived to bless others.
So you service to others.
That's right, service to others. And it has an effect on the immune system again. In fact, in studies of people who are helping others, mortality was significantly reduced for individuals who provided support to friends, relatives, neighbors, and their spouse. What was very interesting, though, is people who just received support, didn't live to help others, actually had no improvement in mortality.
So I'm not really helping myself if I just sit here and take all the service and support from my friends and neighbors. I need to return that, it sounds like.
That's exactly right. In one study, people who volunteered had 60% less mortality even than those that showed up in church every week.
Fantastic.
So getting involved is more important than just being there. And we've kind of known that all along, that those who get involved are getting more out of stuff.
So don't just sit there. Get
Don't
up
just
and do
sit there.
something.
That's exactly right. Reminds us of a famous text, doesn't it?
Acts.
Acts 20:35. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Well, in summary, Use sanitary precautions to reduce your exposure to this bird flu virus. Be prepared in case of national shortages of essential supplies and services. You might get cut off. I mean, if everybody's out of work just from being sick, the trucks won't be running. But if they quarantine the entire country, you might be scrounging up to find a potato chip to eat. That wouldn't be good for you. And then, there are vaccines and antivirals, but they could be in limited supply and of limited efficacy. And so what you want to do is do all you can to boost your immune system.
That's right. Practicing good health habits is the most important thing you can do to boost your immune system. And just a quick review of those: eating a nutritious, balanced diet, all those fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds that we talked about.
Yes.
Eating a variety of foods, plenty of vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, whole grain products.
Yes.
It's the most important thing you can do to get all the vitamins you need. And it's not so much what you're eating, but what you're avoiding eating as well. You want to stay away from the excess salts and sugar, alcohol, cholesterol, and saturated fats, which depress your immune system.
Yes, boy, you've got it right. Other practices, drinking lots of water. We suggest, 10 glasses of water a day. And exercise on a regular basis.
That's right.
Just keep moving. You see, when you stop moving, I guess you die.
That's right. No circulation.
And then remember, you need some rest. So in between, you get some rest. The only thing more difficult than planning for this bird flu would be explaining why you didn't do it.
Definitely.
Especially if you have people dying around. Yes, indeed. Well, this has been the talk on how to prevent the bird flu. Next coming will be our third talk and demonstration on how to treat it if you come down with it. And, that could be a lifesaver.
Definitely. Well, thank you for being with us today.
Yes, thank you for being with us today.